Okay guys, in today's how-to video we're going to actually go over how you make warp or lightning effects or force field effects, much like you see on this warp head. Okay? Alright, today we're going to actually do it to represent a custom force field on an Orc Mega Dread. Alright, so rivets are on, magnetizing is done, pretty much almost ready to paint. I got one step that I wanted to actually work through and illustrate for you on this. So this video is actually going to be talking about how to incorporate force field, electrical, or warp lightning effects into a model. It's actually a little bit pretty straightforward. Don't need a whole lot of tools for it, but it does take some time. So let's kind of walk through that real quick. I'm going to reset the camera a bit so that you can see the different, get a different angle, and you'll actually be able to watch me work. Alright, so on this model I've taken the head off. I haven't glued it in yet. Now, just to kind of go over what is about to happen, then I'll go through how we'll actually do it. In this bit back here is the custom force field generator, or that's what I'm calling it, even though that's how the model gets its 5-up invul and save. Now, what I'm going to want to do is pick a few points on this bit to be the origin of the force field charge, or lightning. And so what I'll do there, the lightning will effectively either come directly from that come out into space, or it'll actually arc into like a part of the body. And so you kind of have to look at it, get an idea of where the lightning could go, what might make it look good. And so I've chosen to drill a few holes in here, in both of these parts. And I'm going to have one warp lightning arc out to here, one lightning arc out to here. Sorry, one over to this plate, shoulder plate. One arc out to here on the engine exhaust. One of them is going to come up out in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to have another one arc over to this side, and then I'm going to have one arc up onto the top of the head, and so it'll actually hit right here. Okay. Now to do that, to prepare the model, the first thing you need to do is get a small pin vise. Let's see if that'll show up real nice. Yeah. Now this is a number 78 drill bit. It is a 0.016 inch bit. The reason for that is I do my lightning effects with 0.015 or 15,000th brass wire. Okay, that's all that I use to make the lightning effects. So the first thing you're going to do is you'll pick the spots where you want the origin of the arc. You don't need to map, where everything's going to go. You just kind of want to know how many you're going to need roughly. So I know I'm going to need about 5. So I drilled one here in this side. Okay, yeah, I've already drilled it, but so there's going to be ones that come out the side here. I've actually drilled one on top over here, and that one goes all the way through. So it actually is going to be an exit point here, an exit point opposite it down below. I have an exit point down here and an exit point up here on these. So that's the 5 points of origin. Once you have those drilled, now it's a matter of actually just doing stuff with the wire. There's a couple different approaches to this. The first thing you're going to have to do is you will definitely want to stick it into the hole you made. Okay. And then figure out where is this going to go. Well, this one's actually going to arc to the shoulder pad from the side. And you're going to want to measure out, just eyeball it. It doesn't need to be perfect. I don't need a micrometer here. Heck, you don't even need a ruler. Figure you'll need, so it may only be about that long. And what you do is you grab a pair of needle nose pliers, okay? And this is where the fun begins, because all you're going to do is, for the length of the wire, you are going to, let's see, I'm going to move this around a bit so that get a darker base here to work up against. See if that is easier to see. Okay. And so now what I'll end up doing is the first one you're going to leave long enough that you're tagging, and just, bend it at an angle. Doesn't matter what angle. And from that point on, you're going to place the needle nose pliers up against that bend, any thickness along there you want, and just bend it in a different direction. And just work your way around, and you can make the bends as severe as you want. It doesn't really matter at this point. Because this is just the armature that's going to make the wire, the lightning. And what I like to do is kind of twist as I go. Sometimes it can end up with kind of a spiral, but by the time you turn it and put it into mount it, it's not going to really look like a spiral, especially once you're finished with it. Okay, so there's the skeleton so far. And again, it doesn't matter what angle you're twisting it to, just as long as you get a twist. And then when you think you've got it long enough, then you can actually mount it in where it's going to go. It is a little harder to hold because of all that. There we go. That's a little better. There it is. It's in. And then you can just kind of hold it. Yeah, see that? To me, I think that this is actually a large enough loop compared to the size. So I think I'm good to go with this. And so what I'll do there is take the piece off. And I will just basically cut it. It's as simple as that. And now, I'm actually going to mount it completely. So I go ahead and I put it in where it's supposed to go. Okay. And then find the other end and make it go where it's supposed to go. If your wire cutters aren't very sharp, it might put a crimp in that end, and since this is only 0.015 wire and the hole is only 0.016, it might be a little hard to get in there. Okay, there we go. So there's the first arcing piece. Now, just take a look at it. Is it following the kind of path you want? I want it to spread out a little bit more, so you just pull it. Okay. Now this is the largest arc coming away from the body that I'm going to have. I don't typically like them that long because they end up being a little fragile, but I want one like this. So now the second approach, and I want to use this the second hole here that I drilled in the custom force field generator. This situation where you're going to have to use the model itself. So I'm going to take this out real quick just to kind of get us going because I don't want this to be in the way. But what you're going to do is you take the wire and run it through the holes that you drilled. If I can find it here. So the only thing I don't like really about the silver on there. And I didn't want to do it before I primed it or after I primed it. Okay, so there it is. So I found it. Okay, so now it's going through. And you can see it's actually going to bump it up against the other one. So I'm going to have to take the pliers or actually take my tweezers and just pull that aside enough so that I can now thread it through there. So now, boom. Okay, coming through at an angle there and out. All right. Now from here, you will actually use the pliers again, but you'll leave the piece in place, the wire in place, and you just start crimping along the edge. So I'm going to start with this one. This is actually going to go, this one's going to go up into space. So I'm going to crimp it up like this, bending it straight up. And then I'm going to start up here at the top and just bend it in all different directions, making it as crinkly as possible. I want the top one to be really distorted. Okay. Alright, so there it is. Now, the way it's sitting, it's kind of, there we go, it's kind of caught. So, since this is one piece of wire through here, it's going to, it's going to be a little hard to play with, but you don't want to glue it in quite yet. You'll want to do that at the end because you want to make sure you've got the charges going out where they're supposed to before you actually try to figure out where you're going to want them. So here's what I'm trying to say is, don't glue them until you know you've decided for sure where they're going to end up. Like for example, I just thought about it, I think this is going to be the one that's going to go up into space, and this one is actually going to arc in a small arc back to here. So I just changed my mind that simply, and I'll just poke that one in there. Now if you want, you can use a number 76 drill bit, and that will be a .020. That will make it easier for you to push the wire into the destination hole. Alright, so now you get this one. This one's actually going to go off into space. That's what I decided. So again, now here I'm going to start close, and I'm going to crimp in all different directions. I want to go backward first here. Now I'll bring it forward. And I'll bring it up this way. Bring it forward. And then that way. Okay. So they're up in the middle of nowhere. Cut this one. Boom. Okay. And now I can put this one back the way I wanted it to, where it originally was. Goes there, and this one goes up here. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me back. There we go. We've got the 3 arcing lightning, or force field lightning pieces. Okay. That's the start. Alright, so I'll go do the next 2, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, there we go. All the parts are in. A little clumsy here. Now, I have 4 coming out the back. Okay, and then what I've done is the 5th one, because I'm keeping the head off so I can prime it, I've got it originating, or ending here in the head, and then I just leave the wire out. I'll end up fixing that once I'm done priming these things. The very next step is in fact priming, because you need to have the next step. You have to prime so you can do your regular paint. The step where you actually start sculpting the lightning, you're going to use a material that is already white, and you do not want to have to go over that with white again. I'll show you that in a little bit. So let me go ahead and prime this thing up, and then affix the final piece of the lightning. Paint the head, and we'll get on with the next piece. Okay? All right. See you in a little bit. Okay, guys, we're back. The model's primed, and the wires have been inserted and glued in place. Now, you don't need to actually prime the wires themselves. You'll see some are still brass, and others, some do have paint on them, some don't. Because the next step is we're going to be using a paste. It's actually a Woodland Scenics Flex paste. Now, you don't have to use this particular product, but I couldn't tell you what DIY or home improvement type of a material would be a good substitute. I'm thinking joint compound might be. The key to this, though, is it's flexible, and that's obviously important when you're dealing with these wires that can move around. You don't want the cracking off and flaking off. So that's kind of why I use this. This jar is usually for terrain. You put it you put it down on your rough terrain forms, and this essentially smooths it out a bit. You can do a little bit of I don't want to call it sculpting, because that's not really what it's used for, but you can definitely get some texture and unevenness in your terrain by using a flex paste like this. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and the only tools you really need are your hobby knife, and sort of peel the top off, and that's really all we need to do right there. Is we'll just get that piece, we'll put it back in the, and we'll just use that almost like a palette. Okay. So let me get a paper towel real quick. Alright, so the key to this is unevenness. So you just pick up a little bit of the material, and as you work your way, it doesn't matter how you work your way through, but just spatula it onto the wire. And you'll see you've got these clumps. That's by nature, it's okay. It's alright to leave them there. That's how you end up disguising the form of the wire, the straightness of the wire itself. You get those uneven edges. Okay. That's a pretty big piece there. See, I just like to drag it along the bottom of the knife to give it some bulk. And you can actually pull it off in little peaks like this, and that's how you end up with the lightning look. So go through. And the thicker it is, the better. You do want to give this a little bit of a shake at the start. And one thing I forgot to mention at the start of this segment was, before you actually start putting the flex paste on, you're going to want to move any wire that is near a surface. Make sure you move it far enough away so that it's easy to get at and it doesn't actually touch the surface, because you're still going to want to paint your surface, the model, appropriately. You don't want this to get in the way or slop onto the model itself, because you do not want this anywhere but the wire. Okay. See, it doesn't matter that it's big like that. That's perfectly legit. That's actually kind of what you want, because that extra material can be used as it dries. You can pull it out in a peak to get some jaggedness going on. And I prefer doing this after I paint the rest of the model. However, I thought it'd be easier for you to see against the black as I went ahead and did this work, instead of being with all the different possible colors that would be in the way here. I didn't want that to detract from the ability to view and see how I go about making this. Okay. And you're going to have to do both the front and the back of the wire. That's the best way to do it, because you're not going to be able to, you're not really painting it. You're applying a layer of this latex on it, and that latex will not wrap around and cover the back side of the wire at all. But you will need to put it on there. Okay. And again, unevenness is the key here. Remember, this is a lightning effect. It's not going to be even the whole way through. Okay. So it started out uneven by the bending of the wire, and now it's by the thicker and thinner portions of the white flex paste. You're actually getting even more variation in the width of the lightning strike. You can see down here there's still some, whoops, right down here. You can see there's still some black. So I'm going to go through that real quick. Yeah. Oops. There we go. Now remember, this flex paste is your base coat. You are not going to be painting anything on this to cover the white color as a base coat. You're going to actually be, from this point on, shading and highlighting. So this white is your base coat, so make sure you're covering every piece of the wire that's there. Don't leave any of it exposed, as that will significantly detract from the image, the effect you're trying to get. Okay, I'm not gonna. This may take several minutes. It doesn't go, as you can see, it doesn't go that long. There's the first arc. Arguably, that's the largest arc I've got on here. So, yeah, oops, I did miss some spots here. So I'm going to pause the recording while I finish the rest of them. The concept is still the same all the way around on any of the lighting effects, whether they're arcing or whether they're going off into space. It's the same. Now, as you get closer to finishing, you get some drier parts. You'll want to put a large amount on a segment, and then start to lift it up a bit like that. See. So here, I'll put one down here. That little peak is what we're trying to affect. And if you want to pick up some of the thicker portions, that will help you. Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go through and finish the rest of these, and I'll come back with the next step, which is still using some flex paste, but it's to do some more of the peaking. Okay? Well, we'll see you in a second. Okay. Gone through now. This is actually the first coat. I probably should have put it that way. So You can see, put it on kind of thick in some places, thin in others, and giving it a chance to dry. It won't take that long. I'd probably give it an hour to be completely dry. You probably don't need to wait a full hour to do the next step, but in the interest of making sure that you don't damage what you've already put there, I would definitely wait. So, just going to review a couple points, and you'll see. Even if you're really careful, like I tried to be, here I pulled the wire away from the body, but in my efforts, it still made contact, and I got some of the white flex paste on the stack. So, I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully paint around that and actually make that another point of contact. You'll see some points where I still need to put a little bit more flex paste on here, so that'll kind of, I just put a thin coat there to catch up, make sure the brass is gone. But you can see there's some body to this now. There's some texture. There's some what I'll call growths for right now. Now, the longer you wait, as the flex paste is being worked, it'll dry and start to get a little thicker and more. You'll be able to make peaks more easily. But I want to save most of that peak work for the second half. This just gives me the base coat, the base structure. So now it's not just a thin piece of wire that you can easily tell is wire. It's got a lot of variation to it. And that variation can be built upon with the peaks in the next step and with the painting in the step following. So let's give this a chance to dry the rest of the way, and then we'll move on. I think what I'll probably do is start painting the primed sections on this while the flex paste is drying. Alright, so catch you in a few minutes. Alright, we're back now, and we're going to try to finish out the rest of the flex paste work. Now, this particular part of the step, the process, is about making sure you've covered all of your small areas where you may have left the wire showing, and start making some of those peaks. So you give the flex paste a good shake, and get some on the bottom of the lid so that you're all set. Matter of fact, let me see if you can see this. See if it's easy to see. You can see this, how it peaks very easily. So that's what you're really trying to go for. That's what you're trying with this final step, because you want to do it on the completed base. So first, I'm going through and making sure I've got all the wire covered. I noticed a few spots that I missed. Careful as you can be, sometimes you're going to miss it. Lighting and angles will always conspire against you when you're trying to cover up something like this. Yeah. And again, if you get it on there, you can let it dry and you can just scrape it off, peel it off basically with your knife, hobby knife. Okay. Now, in some of these cases, I'm going to put on enough to not only cover the spot, but create that little jag there, that little peak. Okay. Yeah, so right here there's didn't go down far enough. Okay. Alright, I want a little peak here. So I'm going to grab some of this, a little bit there, and start putting more of it on. See? There. Okay. Up here I want peak. Okay. Alright. I just had it. There it is. There we go. See a nice peak there. Let's see a couple other spots. You don't have to be too prolific with this. You don't have to have a lot of peaks, but just enough to give it that impression of energy flowing through the air. Definitely need some here in this spot. So you grab, the more you have on your knife, the more you have that can become part of that peak. Okay. Okay. Now I think I've got all of it. I'm sorry, all the wire covered. Okay. Alright, so we're going to leave it there. We have to let this part dry just maybe 15-20 minutes. Not a whole lot. You don't need to, it doesn't need to be completely dry. We're going to start going over with some paints now to get it up to speed, you know, get the color shading we want. So let me show you what I'm going to do ahead of time. Here, okay, just, I don't go expensive with paints. Sometimes this is Delta's Ceram Coat. I am using the Ocean Reef Green, or sorry, blue. That is the color I'm going to use to do most of the highlighting and washing on this. I can use a little bit of Army Painter's blue shade, but that may end up getting a little too dark in some spots. So I typically just go with this one paint. Any light blue that, well, you know, again, I'm using blue for this particular custom force field, but, you know, Webway Energy is depicted as blue. There's Warp Energy is depicted as orange. Sometimes the orcs are seen with green or blue Warp Energy. So, you know, really the color doesn't matter, but you don't need a fancy paint to do it. This bottle, matter of fact, is years old. I don't want to tell you how old it is. You know, buck. This is, I think, goes for about $1.40 now or so. All right, so let this dry. We'll be back to do the washes. All right, so now that the flex paste is dried, we're ready to kind of attack the painting and shading aspect. You can do regular shading and highlighting on this. You do not want to actually paint it in any way. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways. Now I don't do this part much, but what you can do is you can use Army Painter's blue tone or red tone, you know, whatever color they make, red, green, blue, and brown. And obviously the red, green, and blue can be used for similarly colored lightning lightning effects you're going for. So I don't need to use a palette here. All you need to do is basically use the tip. Just put the brush in the tip, pick up some of the color, some of the pink ink, and then you can very lightly just go through and apply some of that along the lightning. Okay, and just basically it's a rinse and repeat process. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing again. Pick up some of that. it's pretty, bold, so it's going to darken the flex base significantly. But it's a good base. Like I said, I don't use it much, but it will give you a little more variation in the shades. That's what you're going for. You don't need to. You're not trying to make a nice, pretty color here. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go to the second version, and that is just using a nice light blue paint. In this case, it's Delta's Ocean Reef. It could be any light blue or again, light color you're looking for. But what I do in this case is I will pick up a little bit of the color, usually from the cap, and then put it into like a base here, something with the water. I can also put water in, sort of almost a palette, and then pick it up, and you're trying to get a little bit of a wash out of this. You don't want it to be super thin, you don't want it to be thick. And then you take that and you brush that on. Oh, that's too thin. Sorry, too thick. So you can go through, and all you need to do is just apply more water to the blue to pull it down. See? There you go. So then that light blue gets pulled across and accents the white. Do that a couple times. Okay. And if it gets too thin, you just put more paint down your palette. This, I think, is where a little bit of blending practice can come in handy. Okay. Whoops, that's definitely too thin, or too thick, sorry. So there we go. There we go. Okay. So now hopefully that's gonna show. Both approaches are good. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to use both approaches on this. Almost a highlight. So just as it goes up a few areas, I'm going to stain. That's really what you're doing here. You're staining some of the white areas with this light blue. Now I've got those different shades. I've got the white, I've got the darker blue, and I've got the light blue. So that's the approach that I'll be taking throughout this. So let me do that real quick. You can kind of watch as I go through each of the three remaining. Now here I'm going back to this Army Painter ink, picking this up. Alrighty, and we're going to go with this small arcing one here. The large one. Just load the tip of the brush from the tip of the bottle and then just apply it. And again, don't do an even coat. Make sure it's varied throughout. That's going to be the key to your effect, because you want the darker color in certain areas, and then you'll let the lighter color come through later. Alright. So, alright, so there we go. I got the Army Painter part done. Just make sure you don't spill it. I almost did. Alright, then go back to the very, very thin paint. That's still too thick. There we go. And I got a little bit too much pooling here, so I'm just going to take this napkin and dab it a bit to pull up some of that extra fluid, and it just lightens it up with just a hair. Cleans it up. There we go. This is make this as thin as you can, because you can always put more layers on. It's a lot easier than taking layers off. Now, it's almost done through this. Now you see I left the generator, the shield generator, silver instead of priming it. It's got the chrome primer on it from the chrome paint that it came with. That's a bit from a model car. I think it's from a model car, the Munsters car. I don't forget what they call it, but Monogram Models I think makes it. Right there, so there we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do though to enhance, or I guess not enhance, but really bring home the connection between this lightning and its origin, is I will actually use the paint direct from the cap, and I'll kind of highlight, kind of just a couple blue, just some blue highlights on it. That way, just on the outside, it's almost a layer. It's just on the top. That way, it's sort of glowing. Has that shield generator look to it. Okay. Alright, so there's the completed effect. Now actually I can definitely go with some more of the light blue here. Okay. Some more of the light blue back here. That's the beauty of this, is you just do a little bit of it as you go. You don't rush it. Best to do it in layers, not in one fell swoop. And I do just use water to thin this down. Yeah, I think that's pretty well done almost. I got a couple places in here I can probably put some more of that light blue down. Okay. Yeah. I think that'll do pretty well. Okay. And that's how you go about making lightning type effects, whether it's warp, force field, or plasma unit, whatever it happens to be, whatever that energy source is. You just color it differently, but it's the same approach. The key is in the wire and the flex paste. All right. I hope you learned something from that. For a little project. You can go ahead and see the rest of this Mega Dread in the Conversion Corner video, and you'll see some of the effects talked about there as well. Okay, so I think that came out right. That's what I was looking for. The lightning arcing from there back to various parts of the construct. All right. I hope you like this. If please share, like, and subscribe. Let me know if there's any suggestions you have, or if any of you know what another, like maybe some of the DIY type materials you could use in place of this flex paste. Share those, please, so that our viewers can definitely learn from those experiences. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching.